Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Town Hall 2022. Thank you so much for your prayers and your presence. Let's begin with a prayer and we'll get started. Gracious and loving God, thank you for our church. Thank you for the heart of this place, the energy of this place. Thank you for those who are finding you in this place. Thank you for old friends and new friends. Thank you for the energy. Thank you for keeping us safe to be here. Thank you for this beacon of light and hope in the world. I pray that you continue to inspire us, help us to be good stewards of what we've been given. I pray for this meeting. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, friends, thank you. We have some business to do this morning, and you all are an assembly of the congregation as required by our bylaws. I want to remind you that this year we are approaching vestry a little bit differently in that we're going to ask for a slate to be approved. This is in keeping of our bylaws as long as we open the floor for nominations this morning. I want to remind you that our vestry slate that I'm asking us to approve are Susan E. McAllison, Derek Belden, Morgan Cook, Tom Garrett, and Bob Meffin. They have all agreed to serve on the vestry. I'm grateful for their willingness to serve, but I do at this time ask if the floor is open for nominations, for additional nominations, for election. If we have a nomination, we will move to elect five. I do want you to know that the person being nominated needs to be present and known to the vestry. So the floor is open for nominations. And I will also entertain a motion that we close the floor. So that's been moved and seconded. Okay, this is a motion moved and seconded to close the floor for nominations. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Okay. Now I ask for a motion that we approve the slate as it has been presented to the congregation. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you, friends. Hey, I got to tell y'all, this has been a journey that took a lot of soul searching and prayerful consideration on the part of the vestry. But what we realized was that many of you want to serve on the vestry, but you didn't want to stand for election. That seemed to be a common thread running through this. And I remember not being elected to the vestry a couple of times in Montgomery and just being devastated and then having the nervous stomach the night before. It's a great way, I think, to continue to raise up leaders. And I'm grateful, so grateful for this slate and grateful for the vestry we have, but also to take care of our people. I can't thank you enough. Now, at this time, we've got a couple of reports, and then I want to coach y'all up and catch you up on St. Luke's, but I want you all to welcome Derek Belden forward. He's going to talk about stewardship for a minute. And he's done a cool job. He's responsible for that cool sticker you got in the mail. Thank you, Derek.
I'll keep this brief, but real quickly, this is my second year working on stewardship, and I took over from Norman Tynes, who was the first person in the church who got us over $3.5 million. And last year was our second year of getting over $3.5 million. Our goal this year is $3.8 million, and we're off to a great start. As of yesterday, or as of today, Camille updated this morning. We had a $25,000 pledge this morning. We have 301 pledges totaling almost $4 million, and that's $70,000 ahead of last year. I wanted to talk briefly about the importance of pledging and stewardship at our church. It makes up our budget. It makes up our ability to do outreach. It makes up basically everything we can do here. And there's so much energy and activity at the church. If you haven't pledged, please do pledge, because it is extremely important to us as we put the budget together for next year to know what we have to spend next year. So I would impress upon you the importance of pledging. As I said, our goal is $3.8 million, and we have a stretch goal of $4 million. As of 10/30/2022, we're at 63% of our 2023 goal, and then approximately 29% of our church has pledged as of today. Last year we had 55%. And we're looking for 100% of families. And one of the challenges we have with stewardship is that the way churches are made up has changed a little bit. In days of old, especially in the Episcopal Church, you would have, you'd transfer your membership to the church where you were going. And it was a lot easier for the vestry and the church to keep in contact with those members. And so with the way churches are made up today, there's a lot of people, new faces coming in who don't necessarily turn their letter in. And so the more that we all can talk up pledging as a group, talk it up with new members, new faces you see. It'll help educate people on the importance of stewardship and pledging in the Episcopal Church. And to that point, we've had 22 new pledgers this year. People who've never been on our rolls have made pledges, and that's made up an additional $51,000 for the church. So that's great. Those are people that were unknown to us, or may have been in services for years but never officially joined the church. So they're getting something out of St. Luke's, and we love to see that. The ways you can pledge: there's a traditional pledge card that most of y'all may have received in the mail. You can return that, drop it in the plate, offering plate on Sundays. The back has some statistics that we have here. Church personnel, your pledge makes up 100% of our annual budget. Church personnel, 57%, community outreach, 16%, operating utilities, etc., 16%, and then education, miscellaneous pastoral care makes up 11%. So 100% of what you give the church goes back into our community. You can scan the QR code also, and the QR code on the posters that are around the church. So please consider making a pledge. We'd love to get to 100%. 55 is great, but there's 45 out there that haven't participated, so let's try to get to 100%. And it's not necessarily about how much, it's about activity and getting involved and finding your place in St. Luke's. So thanks for the time, Rich, and I'll give it back over to Rich.
Thank you
all.
Appreciate you, Derek, so much. And now I'm going to invite our senior warden, Wayne Trucks, to come forward. See if I can get your name up there, Wayne. There you are, senior warden of the vestry. He's got some observations about St. Luke's in 2022.
That's not me.
Oh, that's not you. Go back.
Much better looking, that's for
no
sure.
kidding. There you go. Go.
All right. Good morning. Well, thank you, Tim. We'll try it one more time. Good morning. As we know, it's a great day at St. Luke's. My name is Wayne Trucks, and I've been humbled and honored to serve on the vestry for the last several years, and this past year as the senior warden. I would like to thank Bill Pitts, one of our junior wardens, and Allison Moran, if you'll pretend to wave so that they can see that you're here. I appreciate all the help. As you know, God asks us to be different. And the COVID disruption forced us to be different. And many of you were pleased with the decisions that the vestry clergy and staff made, and some of you were not so pleased, and were very nice to let us know that you were not pleased. One of the challenges of the COVID disruption, though, has led us to is a different way of doing things here in our community, in our parish, and in our diocese. I don't think that it's too egotistical to say that we are better than we were before the COVID disruption, and especially when we compare what we were able to do for the community with some of the churches that haven't really survived, and for lack of a better phrase. As we emerge, we've been asked to be different. We're able to continue this progress because of you and all of you who help us with a pledge. Now, I'm not asking for an amount, but how many of you receive a monthly paycheck? Just a couple of you? Everybody else? Great. I want to live at your house then, okay? The idea of the paycheck is it helps us figure out what our expenses are and how we can handle our expenses on a monthly basis. That's what we're asking for with the pledge, okay? With you pledge, remember that it's not necessarily just about the amount, but just the fact that we can count on that money on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, because it helps us plan on how we can serve our congregation, the Mountain Brook community, and our diocese. We play a significant role there. So through your pledge, St. Luke's can prepare and plan how to use our resources to continue to meet the needs of our congregation. And your pledge helps us make every day a great day at St. Luke's. Thank you.
So this is a time, I mentioned this in the announcements this morning, this is a time for us to kind of take a little breather before the holidays are here, right? They're here beginning this week. And look at where we are and what we're doing. And I want to make sure that you all access, if you will, every corner of this church, all the things that might be happening these days. First of all, I wanted to, in addition to Derek's report, I wanted to give you a couple little factoids before we get started. First of all, St. Luke's, okay, this is pretty fun. St. Luke's has, I just saw it, and then I lost it on the page. Oh, here you go. We have 3,000 members. Did you know that? We have 3,000 members of this church. Isn't that crazy? We have 2,014 adult confirmed members and 778 baptized members. We're getting younger. Did y'all know that? Did you see all the children that were here? I'm going to say some more about that in a minute. Okay, our church and facility is approximately 71,937 gross square footage. The footprint of the original Little Red Church could fit into St. Luke's over 25 times. And we're still not big enough. But we can't do anything about that. So I just thought those were fun. Hey, let me tell you some things that are happening at St. Luke's. You just saw our picture a minute ago. Let's see if this will come up. There we are. Jordan Rippey literally found us about a year ago. She is finishing her last semesters of education at Virginia Seminary, but she's also a professor of accounting at Johns Hopkins. She's a very smart person, and loves our church. Came here as a ministry intern, and now wants to be a part of our team. We want her to be a part of our team. So she's going to join us for about a year starting next Sunday because she's taking a teaching sabbatical. And what we're going to do is we're going to shepherd her through the final semesters of her education, and our plan is to continue her as associate priest here. So right now she's a ministry associate, although Jordan is smart enough that she could be ordained right now as far as I'm concerned. But she'll be working on liturgy, preaching, and pastoral care with an emphasis on senior ministry. She loves our old folks. And so Jordan is going to be a great addition to the clergy team. If you haven't met her already, you'll get to meet her next week. And she's just delightful and bright and easy and personable, and very much fits in the St. Luke's way, if you will. So in addition to Jordan, let me tell you some other things that are happening in our church. I was asked by the vestry to mention this, and I think it's good to lead with this, that we not only are we a creative and a busy place, we're also a powerhouse of outreach. You need to understand that this is really the foundation of who we are. Outreach has always been a starting point for St. Luke's. Before we make a budget, we take 10% of our budget and we give it to local outreach. Then we take another 10% of our budget, we give it to the diocese. We are currently the largest contributor to the diocese, and we show leadership in that way. Many churches will call their diocesan gift their outreach, but see, we just consider that to be our diocesan family. We also give 10% to local nonprofits, so we are very, very important in our city. That doesn't even count the very many unbudgeted outreach disbursements that come along the year, would be tornado relief or hurricane relief. Our outreach also comes from our foundation. Guys, we have a foundation that, with the income of that foundation, never goes into the general fund. It goes to outreach and unbudgeted needs. There's something that I've been asking families to do as we prepare for funerals, for instance, when someone dies and I'm sitting with the family in the office, rather than having an undesignated memorial, we're asking that those funds go to the St. Luke's Foundation. There are foundation board members around all the time that can talk to you about estate planning and ways to grow that. Right now we have a corpus of about $2.7 million. I think it's a good goal for us to have a $10 million foundation, so that income can be an additional source of outreach. Things come up during the year, but we plan and we disperse that money. The outreach committee will be doing that very soon. We'll disperse that money, but then other things come up, right? And so the foundation is an important tool for us. But not only do we have the dollars, we also have the heart and the hands. And during the announcements this morning, I've been asking for Stair tutors. Some of y'all have done this before. This is a tutoring program at Norwood Elementary. There are currently 5 children on the waiting list for Stair, and I suspect that there are more than 5 on the waiting list for Stair. If you've been reading the newspaper lately, children in the inner city have especially been hurt by the COVID disruption. I think all children, our children in this community, have been hurt by the COVID disruption, but especially in reading and math, and children in the inner city need to be coached up, or we will lose a grade or 2 of these kids. They're not going to move forward. They won't move forward to the next grade if they can't read. So I'm asking you all to consider your Tuesday and your Thursday afternoons from 3:30 to 4:30. If you can only do one day, I'm sure they'll work out anything you can take. But this is frontline ministry happening, and this is important work for kingdom building in our city. So you see, we are a hands-on outreach church. I wanted to remind you that Founders Place continues to delight us and inspire us for 2 days a week in this building. This is the happiest place in town. what I have observed about Founders Place, and I see many of you are volunteers or staff members that make that happen. Founders Place is also, I believe, revolutionizing how we do seniors ministry at St. Luke's, and I'll tell you how. This is fun to think about. So the statistics, if I remember them, Susie's here, she could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 1 in 10 people over 65 will experience some sort of cognitive impairment. 1 in 10. And that means a good number of our friends will at some point develop some cognitive impairment to the point that they need a Founders Place to give a respite, not only for the person that perhaps has, for instance, Alzheimer's, but also the person who cares for them, just to give them a break, just to know that they're somewhere singing and being happy. And there are people for whom were in leadership in this church when I arrived here 18 years ago that are now in the Founders Place program, meaning vestry members, wardens, this sort of thing. And it brings me great joy to know that we're honoring their lives and their heart, and this church that they built now is taking care of them in this intimate, cool way. Singing, artwork, laughter, memory games. It is side-by-side choirs. It is truly an inspiring ministry that I hope that we will continue to support. All that said, I will tell you, I wish we could do it all the time, but we don't have the space. We don't have enough church to do this more. So my dream, and I want you to dream with me as you talk to your neighbors and your friends, my dream is that we get all the churches in the Birmingham area to start respite care programs so that we can help replicate what we have. I don't think it's good enough to sit to keep our lamp under a bushel, but rather so we can take that forward. So just know that Founders Place is an important ministry. And why are those pictures doing that? This came out of nowhere. Huh? Oh, is Henry back there? He did run back there. Okay. So I just noticed y'all weren't looking at me. I'm like, okay, what's behind me? Is Janelle turning those off? Jay, can we make those stop? Okay, she said yes. Okay. So here's where it becomes revolutionary. This is a big honking. I like that better. Big honking idea. Before the COVID disruption, we had seniors ministries here, but we tended to, I'll say this respectfully, infantilize our very oldest members, meaning we would have a little party, and we might have a Valentine's party, and we might have an event that we would take people on a little trip or something. But it wasn't very different than an elementary school program. And by the way, all churches do this. The churches, this will be the church program. What's happening with Founders Place is we're now engaging our senior adults and asking them to take care of their neighbors and their friends. That's the revolutionary part. We're giving our seniors the honor of having meaningful work and having an important ministry to do. So now what we're doing is we're engaging the minds of these very smart people who have long built and led this church, and they're having new leadership roles. That's the cool part. Another cool thing that we're doing at St. Luke's for seniors is that we have Bridge University, and just about any day of the week, there's more card playing on the back hall of St. Luke's than Pearl River Resort. All right, so just know that our seniors are being engaged, and also with chair exercise and other ways to take care of mind, body, and soul. We're all about health and wellness regardless of your age. So that's a cool thing to say. I believe that the two groups most affected by the pandemic disruption were our senior adults and our children, so that the resources of this church have to date sort of been going in those two directions. I want y'all to know that. So I've mentioned senior ministries and how we're revolutionizing that. I also want to say something about what we're doing for children. Corey and I cover chapel at Preschool Partners every Wednesday, while David covers chapel here at the day school. We believe that children's ministries, like STAIR, not only for inner city children, but for the children in this neighborhood, they also need a church. They need touches. They need adult people who love them and care for them. They need spiritual leaders. And so we spend our Wednesdays with children. On Wednesday afternoon, all of your clergy and your children's ministry staff and your youth staff, we all teach Bible Club. We all teach Bible Club. I got third grade. And it's if you want to know what Bible Club is, the best I can tell you is that it's Bible and it's a club. And that's about it. And we can look up verses and we tell stories, and we are absolutely smitten with the children of the community. In a way, this too is outreach. As I've mentioned, these two groups have been most affected by the pandemic disruption. I believe that it's been our care of these two groups that has been sort of the catalyst, if you will, the catalyst for growth. And then while your clergy are teaching children the Bible, the rest of our team are in the kitchen packing for the Wednesday night suppers that you enjoy, and the proceeds go to outreach. So you see, this place becomes a factory, if you will, of money and resources and talent and heart to make the world a better place. Your staff, and by the way, I want you to take time and give a hand to the staff of St. Luke's, please. This is the hardest working staff we've ever had. The people, and many of them are standing on the back wall there, the people here make this church not only run for you, but also engage you and inspire you and work hard for you. One of the things that makes our church work, and I think this is, again, a catalyst for the energy that you're probably feeling these days, is that we try very, very hard to be a team, that no one person is more important than the whole, and we support each other, and we fall into support roles in ways that quite frankly, big churches don't often do. Now, I've said a lot about outreach, and perhaps now I can talk a little bit about us and talk about perhaps what the benefits of a generous-hearted church like this. I was asked to speak at a webinar last week called the Episcopal Parish Network. It was formerly called the Consortium of Endowed Episcopal Parishes. I think they wanted to include churches that didn't have a lot of money. So I spoke to over 100 parishes to talk about Jimmy's breakfast. Isn't that great? Now, look, everybody can't have Jimmy, but by the way, did anybody have the salmon? Oh yeah. I'd already finished a sausage biscuit when the salmon came out. I'm like, really? It's like Bottega in a cup. And Jimmy, I need to tell you the story of St. Luke's food, so I can tell you about breakfast. So during the COVID lockdown, the hard COVID lockdown. By the way, I was in the doctor's office last week, and my physician thinks that we're going to be saying the COVID word for the rest of our lives. This is just what we do. So we don't say when the pandemic, now that the pandemic is over, I think we're going to be fooling with stuff, forever. But when we talk about the hard lockdown, the summer of 2020, the one we'd all like to forget. So the church was closed, if you remember, and this was before we started the outside services. We didn't know we could do that yet. So we got, thanks to George Palakas, we got PPE money that kept our church from going into debt, and we had money to pay everybody. We didn't have to lose any of our employees, but we also needed to give people something to do. So Jimmy went and got our genius back there, went and got our kitchen Board of Health certified, which means that, I know many of you have been around St. Luke's a long time, it means that we just can't have volunteers wandering in and out of the kitchen without a food handler's card. That's the first thing that happened. So then everybody got a food handler's card. And this is a cool story to tell, right? There are not a lot of churches with a story like ours. Everybody on staff got a food handler's card. That means the clergy did. That means the support staff, the financial people. This meant youth ministers. Everybody got a food handler's card, and we all started cooking and prepping for Jimmy. And so the Wednesday night supper that you enjoy today was born out of that hard lockdown summer where we reinvented ourselves and became a restaurant. Now, I'll also tell you that in addition to a retail restaurant, this is a new way of doing church. This is part of the St. Luke story. We see lots of you. We see a lot of you every Wednesday night. I wonder why. And I get to walk up and down and talk to you in the cars, and I get to pray for you, and I get to pray for your parents, and I get to pray for, pray with your children. We get to pet your dogs. We get to do all these things. We have more meaningful touches in the carpool line of the Wednesday night supper than we would have ever had on a Wednesday night before, at least since I've been here. So I want you to know that church is being done in the form of a restaurant, that it is very much church. And last year we netted, this is a crazy number, $20,000 for local outreach. I know, right? That's $20,000 more that we didn't have to give to the community in outreach dollars. So this is an important ministry. Well, okay, so then we worshiped outside for a while. Y'all remember that? And we had the coldest winter on record, and we were outside. You remember that? And someone said, "Wasn't Christmas Eve pretty?" I'm like, "No, my feet were frozen." But other than that, it was great. And so we lived through that. And then this time last year was sort of the first return. So it's fall 2021, and we had some hiccups, you know, we had some spikes in the transmission, and we was talking about it, yeah. And so really this year's the first year we've really been able to roar back like we wanted to. But fall 2021, we wanted to come back, and so suddenly we wanted breakfast. But here's the problem. You can't come in the kitchen anymore without a food handler's card. And also we realized that breakfast, we wanted to have the word at 9. We didn't want to have it concurrently, right? And where were we going to have breakfast? And if you recall, breakfast used to be from 8:50 to about 9:15. And so suddenly the room wasn't really available to us in those ways. And so we thought we'd try something creative. And this is why I spoke to a webinar of 100 churches last week. QR codes, high toppers, breakfast out from 7 until noon. Breakfast has become the linchpin, I think, of the Sunday morning experience here. There's more fun and fellowship and enjoyment around those tables as people meet each other, talk to each other. I've observed a couple of things that are kind of cute and fun. A couple weeks ago, I observed two people just meet each other, and one was a mother with a baby, and she was trying to get a clamshell with a biscuit sandwich or something in it, and the other adult said, "Can I hold your baby while you get your breakfast?" Right? That kind of meaningful interaction. We Episcopalians are funny. We're funny birds. I remember how we were. We've always been a warm church, but we are Episcopalian. You give an Episcopalian a tray, and we don't talk. I don't know if we're worried about spilling food, but if you give an Episcopalian a tray with a plate and then like some salt and some cheese grits and a biscuit and some bacon that you paid $0.25 a piece for, you're not talking to nobody. I'm just saying, I've watched the friendliest people in this church walk right by a visitor, just on the way to their table. And so with the high topper and the pre-wrapped food, this was the message. This is the message. I really believe breakfast could save the church. This is the message for all these parishes: is that people visit. When we thought about reinvigorating or relaunching the visitors committee, the greeters committee, what we decided was, I don't think we need a greeters committee. I don't think we need to locate 7 extroverts and give them a badge. I think what we do is we're all the greeters committee. In other words, if you're out there eating, you're a greeter, right? If you're out there eating, I want you going, "Did you see the salmon that just came out?" Right? I mean, this kind of thing. Did you know that Jimmy sprinkled truffle on eggs a couple weeks ago? We had truffle eggs. They're crazy. What a nice church. Truffle eggs. Okay, that's something to talk about. Tell the visitors, right? And so people are talking and they're interacting in ways that they never did before. I offer this analogy. Humbly. I think St. Luke's has become something akin to Back 40. You know what Back 40 is? Okay, it's like a brew pub. Now, look, when I say this, I don't want you to go, "Oh, he's Rich talking about beer." No, a brew pub is the perfect business model for 2022, because it requires a fewer number of employees, which, quite frankly, we're short. And if you haven't made a pledge to St. Luke's, I'll tell you why we're asking for a pledge. We need to compensate and adjust the incomes of the people that are working so hard for you. We need to do that. And secondly, I know. Thank you. Also, any of you who run a business know that if your budget is flat, and cost will increase. And we also need to hire a Christian education minister. We're running really without that right now. So in some ways, we're running like Back 40. If you go to Back 40, you've got 4 or 5 people behind the counter. You get your own food, right? You sort of do your own. You wait on yourself a little bit. A brew pub is the one place where you can bring a toddler, you can bring a dog, you can bring your parents, you can bring the office, right? You can bring your neighbors and your friends. You can meet there, and you access it any way that you choose to access it. It can be supper, or it can be meet after work to say howdy do. The same thing is happening since we've put our food in the middle of the church from 7 to 12. People are touching their church the way that they want to touch their church. In other words, I've seen people, come to Jericho Road and go to breakfast and go home. That's okay. I've seen people go to Travelers and go to breakfast and go home. Hey, let me give a shout out to Travelers for a second. Travelers is a post-COVID phenomenon. And I will say that Pat King and Tree were genius in starting what I like to call, y'all think about this, especially if you came from another church, a Methodist Sunday school class. Now, look, the strength of Methodism is built upon its Sunday school. Yeah, give that a shout out. Methodism is built upon Sunday school classes, and I'm waiting. Pat, I just found Pat. I'm waiting for someone to put in their obituary they were members of the Travelers Sunday School class at St. Luke's Episcopal Church. They've got their own treasurer. It's crazy, right? And there are a million of them. So people are coming to breakfast, going to Travelers, right, and going home. That's okay. Another thing breakfast has done. Breakfast has driven attendance upstairs at 11 o'clock. So that people, because I've noticed now that people like all the services at St. Luke's, and I've got a thought about that. But they like all the services at St. Luke's. Now this just works for their schedule. Some of you just have that one slow kid, and you never could get it together. And so I'll say something about worship, so that you understand what we're doing here. Why does this work? The word now is 8 years old or older. I forget how long we've had it. It's sort of like we've always had it. But what has made our church happen, and where it hasn't worked sometimes in other churches, or other churches are afraid to try a service like the Word, is that the Word is an ark, and upstairs is the temple. And we use the two models in the Hebrew Scriptures, ark and temple, so that the two don't run up against each other. What I mean by that is, for instance, if you have children of an acolyte age, we have acolytes in the temple, but not the ark. Baptisms happen in the temple. Confirmations happen in the temple. An ark is intended to move. It's supplemental. It's nimble. It could even be temporary. You know what's neat about an ark is that you could come in here on Sunday morning, and I could have the altar over there, and you'd say, okay, well, this is where we're worshiping. But upstairs, you don't change the temple, because important things have happened to you there. Perhaps you've buried a parent there. Perhaps you were married in that room. That room does not change. And so what we've done is we've carefully defined kind of who we are and what we do into ark and temple, so that our worship, again, I think glued together by yummy food that's offered all morning long, is enabling you to pick how you want to engage with St. Luke's. I think this is what's making us work. I don't want to disparage any church's plan. All churches are wonderful. All churches are houses of God, and they love Jesus. But if a church is expecting everybody to come back the way they did in 2019, doing it the same old way, they're not going to make it. A good thought experiment, if you will, is to compare, just imagine, say, down 280 somewhere, two restaurants with the same cuisine. Maybe let's say they're Mexican restaurants. Same cuisine, same nachos, same tacos, same enchiladas, that kind of thing. One made it, one didn't make it. Why did the one make it? Well, the one made it because they had outside seating. One made it because they do DoorDash. One made it because they have a better web presence. One made it because they were creative in a way, right? And so on, and so frozen margs, I don't know, and so on and so on and so on, so that the restaurant that innovated was able to not only survive but thrive. It's a weird economy right now. Some things are just sailing through the roof, and other things are dead on the vine. I'm happy to tell you that in terms of excitement and maybe a happiness quotient or numbers of children, whatever you want to say it, it's happening here, guys. Now, I also need to say that it's happening here because our music is very good at every service. I mean, the music, yeah, I know, I agree. I'm loving the pause. It's got get me fired up. All right, so those of you who love the word music, Sean continues to work very hard to attract members. Let me tell you something that's absolutely mind-blowing. And this is where my clergy colleagues, they don't believe me. Many of my clergy colleagues are terrified of implementing different forms of worship because they're scared of splitting the church. We have members of the upstairs choir singing in the Word, which means that St. Luke's is just one church now. We're seamless. We're absolutely seamless. So that we've got sopranos who sing for Jamie and Philip upstairs are singing down here now, including this morning. Upstairs, what makes the 11 o'clock service work is, frankly, Jamie and Philip. They're amazing. They put, clap for that. Clap for them. They put together the best choir in the city, the best choral program in the city. And they did something for me that I just want y'all to know. I love music. I love all kinds of music. I love all forms of music. And I said to Jamie and Philip, I said, Jamie, I think coming out of COVID, I think we need some comfort food. And what I want you to do is a little less Boston Symphony and a little more Boston Pops. So what's happened is that the music that we have upstairs is lush, it's choral, it's difficult to sing, but it's also accessible, like a movie soundtrack or a movie score. And children like it too. And if you'll notice, we get just as many children going to Sunday school out of the 11 o'clock service as we do out of the Word, which again proves you really can have it all as we choose. Now, speaking of arks, I got one more thing to tell you about, and then I'll wrap this up in a sec. We were able to use this Ark and Temple model to add a campus to our church in Crestline Park. Many of you may have heard about it. If you don't know about it, I want to tell you the story. There is a little yellow church across the street from Saul's in Crestline Park. It's been there for 70 years. It was built by Ollie McClung of Ollie's Barbecue. I know, right? I know all about this little church now. And on its last Sunday of existence, it had 6 people in church, and 5 of them were from one family. So they really just had 2. And so I was getting my hair cut, salon on Haygood, and I looked out there and I saw the sign that said, "Thanks for the memories," right? And so as the Holy Spirit would have it, a member of the presbytery lives on my street, and I said to Chris, I said, "Do you know anybody who has anything to do with that building?" He said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I'm in charge of the whole shebang." He's my neighbor, right? Isn't that cool? And so we were able to talk about it. And as it turns out, the little yellow church in Crestline Park is caught, God bless him, caught in a 2-year lease with the school. Their pastor signed a lease that she didn't have the authority to sign. And they don't want to throw the school out on the street. It's a cool little school called Crestwood Day School, and it's basically made up of families from Redeemer over in Avondale. Y'all know that church, Redeemer? Cool, really cool people. A lot of pastors' children. They wanted to have a private school that prices out at about $5,000 a year. It's a faith-based school. But they wanted to stay in Crestwood. These are families that want to stay in Birmingham. They don't want to have to move to an over-the-mountain community to go to school. So it's a neat vision, cute little school. And so anyway, nobody wants to turn them out on the street. So I thought, let's just rent Crestline Park Church for Sundays, And so for 2 years, we have another campus. Now, I'm certain that when those 2 years are up, there will be a developer that will pay handsomely for that 3 acres in the middle of Crestline Park. But until then, we have a service at 4 o'clock, and the mean age is about 27. And there's a bunch of girls that live in a house somewhere near there. They all walk down in their flower dresses and their tennis shoes. And I've put one of them. I told Carly Dawkins, she's chairman of the Altar Guild. And we basically have a school for 25 to 30-year-olds in Crestline Park. Now, 4 o'clock is the perfect age for them because that's about when they're waking up, and right, and it's just great. It's just great. And magic. I just want y'all to know that magic is happening over there. It's an ark of St. Luke's, meaning they're not going to get married there. It's not a church plant. I mean, if they want to get married, they're going to get married they're going to get married in the temple, right? You have baptism, you come back to the temple. That's the relationship to it. And so what we're trying to do is to model for the larger church. There are ways to grow. You don't have to sit on your thumbs and wondering how you can get church started. We don't even have a sign out front right now, and we're averaging 50 people a Sunday. So there's just postcards and mailboxes. Let's just do it and see what happens. This afternoon, our bishop is coming to visit her newest church in Crestline Park. If any of you want to see it and you want to join us for worship and say howdy do to Bishop G at 4 o'clock, you are most welcome to join us. We would love to see you. And quite frankly, I'd like to have a full room. Anytime a bishop shows up, you don't want to have an empty church. So know that, but know that this is what we're doing. I mean, if you think, what is Rich doing now? Like, we can't afford, we're raising money for the budget. We're starting a new church. Actually, I want you to know we spend more money on bulletins than we do on this church. Isn't that fascinating, right? We spend nothing on this, and we're having a lot of fun. And we're reaching people for whom we would have never reached before. So, for instance, at a wedding a couple weekends ago, this cute bridesmaid from Mobile comes up to me and she goes, "Hey, Rich, my name's Lee. I go to your Crestline Park church." See, we just wouldn't have reached him. So I want you to know that your church is continuing to innovate in many ways, like businesses are continuing to innovate. We're growing, like growing businesses are continuing to grow. We're trying to harness whatever energy is in 2022. I mean, there's plenty of gospel to be spread, and there's plenty of people who need to hear it. But we've got to find new ways in order to reach. And help us spread the word, help us grow the kingdom, help us tell the world about Jesus in new ways. Okay, speaking of a new way, this is fun. Oh, you know what? I think we lost all of our slides because I had a how to do this. Okay, I want you to. Yay! We have a church app. I've wanted this for years. Okay, this is a very cool toy. I want you to go to your app store and search St. Luke's. And by the way, there are people here who can help you do this today. I know Camille and Aaron are here, and they're in the back, and any of us in between services can show you how to do this. You go to the app store, and the trick to our church is you need to spell out Saint. So that's how you find it. And then you see the blue logo, and you buy it, or you get it, right? It's free. Then what you need to do is log in, which is simply put your email in there or your cell phone, and it'll send you a little code to make sure that that's you. And then when you do that, you'll update your information, or you'll tell them it's fine. Once you do that, you have a directory. Everybody in the church now, you got their email address, you got their phone number, and you got a map. And if the person in the directory is savvy enough to do this, you also have their picture. Do you remember the days, the Olin Mills weekend, right? And someone would want to sell you the whole package. You know what I'm saying? Gone are those days. All right. But what I can't imagine having in the future, this is another dream of mine, is having a little photo booth at the church if you want to come in, and someone will take your picture and download your picture for you on your app, so that you will have a picture of everybody at the church that you can update, and you don't have to buy anything from a cheesy salesman. Now, I want everybody to download the app because you can do some things. It's an easy way to watch our media. That includes all the Sunday school classes. So all you thousands of people who go to Travelers, y'all can check out Jericho Road on your phone that afternoon. Okay, you can access upcoming events in a quick and easy way. In other words, it's a really fast way. You don't have to wait for that midweek email. We have more cool ways of reaching you now, and that app is just the icing on the cake. I just think it's super cool. So I've got 5 minutes if anybody has a question. I'm scared to ask. Yes, sir. What's the health rating code of our restaurant? 100. That's our code. Yeah. So hey, Tim, you know what? This is an interesting question. I said, Jimmy, if we're going to be health rated, I just want to be higher than China Way over on the Port of Madrid. He said, no. We go for perfection. We're 100. Thank you. Any other questions? Let me have a prayer and I'll let y'all go. And y'all look for the salmon, okay? Heavenly Father, thank you. Thank you for the smiles and the laughter and the applause, but I thank you for this church. I pray that we continue to be faithful as we tell the world about you, bring you to the world. I pray for the children in our school systems that they may test well. I pray that you raise up faithful volunteers to love them and to teach them to read. I pray for so many things, but we give you thanks and praise in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks, everybody. Town Hall is concluded. Yay!